immediately they grasped the attention of everybody who was watching. Everybody had this energy and excitement in the, like, from the arena to home. You could feel it. It was palpable. People are excited about what AEW is doing right now.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know about you, but I felt like this format for Rampage, it really worked. I really like how it was a tight show. It was an hour-long episode. It was hitting hard. It felt like it was smooth and polished. And they tried a lot of unique things tonight, right? They tried a four-man commentator team tonight. We'll get into some of that tonight.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. There's a lot of back and forth on social media about that. So we're going to definitely get into the commentary team and the matches. I mean, I think all the matches were hit tonight as well. We had 3. They were all great, all very different as well, which is cool.
That's the exciting part too. Good point by you. You know, the matches were diverse. You got to see a starter of the show where you get to see Kenny Omega, the belt collector, go against Christian, who, you know, Christian, let's be real, man, getting into this match, I think everybody across the board had some reservations on how was AEW going to handle this, right? Because from the get-go, all of us felt like Hangman Adam Page was the default, the de facto challenger for Kenny and at All Out. And with the way AEW pivoted, we saw it at Dynamite. The fans turned on that announcement. And I think after tonight's performance against Kenny, it was a reminder of what a legend Christian is and what a workhorse that guy is, what he can do in the ring, right? A great storyteller, and this match really did tell a story, right? It really did tell. How many times have you and I talked about when is somebody going to be able to overcome the antics of the Elite? And we got to see the Elite in full, in all their glory tonight. The Bucks coming down, trying to get involved, getting the chair into the ring. Don Callis was at his best, and Christian, the veteran, the smarts of a veteran. That's what was the difference tonight, folks. It was perfectly played, and I think it sets the stage for All Out in a different way. I think it gets us looking at that matchup with Kenny in a very different lens. Do you agree?
I agree, because now we're actually seeing Christian on that level again, and I think that part of the problem before this match was people weren't seeing Christian that way. Christian was undefeated. I'm not saying he hasn't done well in AEW. He's done everything the right way. He's won every match he's had. But he wasn't presented in that main event tier. And now you can't argue. He beat Kenny Omega and he won the Impact Championship. He is in that tier. He is the tier. Now he's the only guy this year who's been able to beat Kenny Omega. And again, you could tell it looked like Kenny, for the most part, even at the beginning of the match, it looked like he didn't know how to take Christian. You could see it in his body language. You could see it in his facial expressions. He was like kind of eyeing him up. He's like, man, like, I don't know what I'm going to do about you. You know, he's bigger than Kenny. He's more experienced than Kenny. He's been a world champion and everywhere he's been, basically. And
it's a good point.
And it worked well for him tonight, man. He was able to outsmart Kenny.
You got to see that play out in a couple different ways, Bonds.
Yeah.
You know, you got to see, like, I remember one of the pivotal moments in this match, it felt like, was when Kenny went for that V trigger in the corner and Christian got out of the way, and Kenny really,
he's like, okay.
Kenny really hit that knee hard in the corner. And I think that was a wake-up call early in the match. Like you said, it was a wake-up call where Kenny was like, okay, like, this dude does his homework. This guy's a vet. This guy has me scouted.
Yeah.
It kind of threw Kenny off his game. And we talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about the four-man commentator crew. And I thought it was a really good point by commentary. Jericho mentioned it, that, you know, Kenny seems to be a guy who runs on emotions. We all know this is a guy who's a big feeler. He's, you know, he loves the business. He's passionate, but he's a wild card, right? He's got he can be a loose cannon at times and be all over the place. And Don has been able to kind of steer Kenny the right way, to kind of, you know, the invisible hand constantly working to keep Kenny under control and moving in the right direction. But Christian, being the veteran, kind of is more the logical, the sort of the mental game is he's going to play that throughout the match. He's going to scout out your moves. He's going to know how to respond. You're not going to put Christian in situations that he hasn't been in before. And I think that what we've seen a lot with the Elite, not just Kenny's title reign, but I know there's a lot of people out there who have been critics of the Elite's title reigns.
Right.
You see a lot of those matches against guys who are not as experienced. Let's be real. Kenny and the Bucks have traveled the world. These guys have won championships all over the planet. And you've seen the Bucks defend their belts against, a lot of rookies, a lot of young up-and-comers, which we've liked. We've liked to see new talents get opportunities and make a name for themselves. Yeah. But when you look at the pattern and you look at the win-loss record of Kenny Omega defending his belt, and you look at the win-loss record of the Bucks defending their belts, you do see that trend of these guys kind of taking advantage of people who are lesser known talents, maybe haven't been around the block quite like they have, and being able to kind of outsmart some of these younger talents. You think about the
numbers.
Use their numbers. And this exactly. And this was an example where not only were they not going to be able to outsmart Christian, but he had backup with Jurassic Express there. And it did paint a different picture to me. I thought this was a really smartly, I think, planned out match overall. When you look at the way that this played out as Bonds, I don't know about you, man, but throughout this, it felt like Christian, if you put that man out in deep water, he knows how to swim. You're not going to be able to put him in a situation that's going to get him rattled or get him to panic. And there were multiple moments where it felt like he could have lost. Kenny was going at it, frenetic pace tonight. Kenny in a typical Kenny Omega fashion. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So I don't know about you, man. I think the match itself, to start off the show, you and I talked about this before. I was saying
we both expected Christian to win, actually, which is kind of funny.
Interesting.
Yeah. We both thought, and we didn't see this on social, but Crayfish posted a picture of our text chain a little bit. And we were both seeing, I saw some stuff on social media earlier, and I was like, man, yeah, like it would make sense. It's a way to get that buzz for All Out, have him beat Kenny. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to be the AEW World Champion. I don't know if that's in the cards, but I do think that this match told a great story. We might see this kind of impact Kenny in a way where this makes Kenny a little bit more off kilter, unhinged. And we all know that when Kenny Omega is unhinged, he's hilarious and creative and interesting. And so it's going to make for some good TV. We might see some changes in the Elite. Who knows? The Young Bucks came in there, and their interference cost Kenny the Impact World Championship. So that was a big deal. And Don Callis, the first time it ever backfired.
Right.
Ever. It was crazy how it worked out, man. And like it was almost like Christian was baiting them into doing something and waiting for the right opportunity. And
it played into the finish, right?
Right.
You think about it again, Christian. Almost expecting, I mean, we've seen it week after week after week. The Elite, there's not going to have it's very rare where the Elite are going to have a clean match, right? So if you're a vet like Christian and you study the tape and you know what to expect, you know that the Bucks are going to get involved. You know that Don's going to get involved at some point.
Yep.
And he was, like you said, he had it scouted and he took advantage of that moment. And for those out there who are going to say, man, like Kenny Omega lost to Christian, now he has a match against Andrade this weekend. Is he going to lose to Andrade and lose the AAA belt? And then, like, is it going to unravel? And does this hurt Kenny? Like, does it put him in a like?
Does losing to Christian Cage hurt Kenny?
No,
it sounds stupid when you say it out loud.
It does. I thank you for saying that, because I feel like you see a lot of those questions come out there from the skeptics, and you say, okay, one, Christian is a Hall of Famer. Two, he's been well established already in AEW as far as being able to hold his own and
he's in great
really
shape.
Show what he's capable of. And I think the last of it is the finish shouldn't be overlooked. Right,
It's a dirty finish.
he hit the kill switch, on a chair. Right, guys, like let's give ourselves a little perspective and remember,
he should have been knocked out.
He that protects Kenny, right? It protects your champ and makes him look strong, but it also shows Christian again as an intellectual equal or even superior to Kenny. Like this might be a moment where Kenny sees, whoa, like AEW, let's be real, is made up of mostly a lot of young up-and-coming talent. And that's one of the things I know you love about this company, Bonds, in particular. You love the up-and-coming stars that this company is building. But having a veteran like Christian does throw a wrinkle into things a little bit for the
There's
elite.
a couple more veterans coming in, so maybe Kenny's got that target on his back, man.
Maybe, my friend, maybe.
You know?
Talking about some veterans that have made an impact in AEW, let's transition into the next match, because I know a lot of people, man, this was a tight show, and it feels like all three matches in this one are going to have people buzzing, right? Kenny lost the Impact Championship. We now have a new Impact champion. Now we transition into another feel-good moment. Christian winning. Although Fuego lost this match against Miro, he does get that contract that the internet wrestling community out there has been begging for. And I think it satisfies, again, just like that first match, I think it satisfies. It's a win-win, right? I think it satisfies everybody. For people like us who are just vibing with what Miro's doing right now, who are loving what Miro's doing, Miro got to destroy Fuego. And again, Miro, this is one of the things you've said it multiple times in your column, Bonds. Miro is such a great base. His matches now as champion, people need to start to see, not only is this dude a monster, and he is being presented as dominant force, but every single match this man is in, his opponents, their offense, their connection with the crowd, everything is amplified to another level just by being in the ring with Miro. He's a powerhouse, and he immediately gives sympathy to, especially to a guy like Fuego, who you said coming into tonight, Fuego was what, 1-39 in AEW?
Yeah,
so
139.
You give a guy like Fuego even more sympathy from the fans, because you see a guy like him who's chasing his dream, not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy.
But he's over, and he's a good performer, and he's talented. And having that moment at the end when Sammy came in and gave him the contract with Tony,
here's the Fuego.
Made it that much better. Good on you, Fuego. That was great. And honestly, what he did to start the match was so cool, where they gave him like, oh man, there's that glimmer of hope. Like he hit those three, and Miro is falling over himself and didn't know what to do. And then Miro just is like, nope, just kidding. And I'm gonna
caught him in midair.
Game over, bud.
Yep. And again,
that's how it needed to go. It was perfect.
The commentary team again tonight, new crew.
Yeah.
They had a moment just at the beginning, right, where Fuego hit those tornado DDTs. They put over Fuego's. That's his trademark move. They put that over like $1 million, and they did a callback to Miro's defense against Shoddy Lee Johnson, where Shoddy Lee hit a tornado TDT.
It was smart. It was like Fuego scouted the match. It was psychology, smart stuff. It's not just a random thing that happened that didn't matter. It mattered. Exactly.
It not only allowed Fuego, it basically not only allowed us as fans to believe that he had this chance, right? Like, wow, like, but it also made it make sense as to why he had a chance against Miro. Because again, Miro, if you have a guy like Miro who literally beat Lance Archer and made Lance Archer pass out, you got to have you have to paint the picture for the common fan as to why is this guy who's coming in here with one win in 40 matches and
able to do something.
Why is he able to stack up against Miro? And they did a perfect job in explaining that. Like Bonds, I know anytime you get to see Miro win, you're always geeking out. I know you're happy. Leaving this matchup, I know a lot of people, especially afterwards, like you just mentioned, Sammy came out post-match, offered up a contract on behalf of Tony Khan and AEW for Fuego. Sammy and Fuego's relationship was really emphasized in this whole post-match kind of moment and celebration. I've seen the rumblings already. I know I'm not alone, Bonds. Do you see potentially, especially with how fast they seem to be kind of moving through this MJF and Jericho saga, do you see potentially Sammy stepping up as a challenger now that almost taking it personal that Miro not only won that match, but ripped up the contract of his best friend, almost was taking delight in potentially ruining this man's dream and crushing his hopes and spirit?
Right.
could you see Sammy stepping in and being a legitimate challenger for Miro? Because we've talked about it time and time again. It really feels like of all the champions, there is no clear contender that has emerged for Miro because of how dominant he's looked. Sammy certainly would be a believable contender, would he not? I mean,
Sammy would be his most believable contender yet, other than Lance. I would say that's like probably the best option for somebody that's already presented in a way that's like a star. You could have a feud finally. It's not going to be it's not going to be where you have, okay, like he's just kind of wrestling guys every week, or every 2 weeks, and just going at it. You're going to get a feud out of it. And I think that would be a good way to present Sammy in a way. The only thing that I would worry about is that Miro is very over with the crowd. And I think maybe if you want to switch that up, then maybe you involve Sammy, because I think that they would be more over for Sammy. So you kind of treat it as like, okay, you're going to put somebody in that's also over to kind of put more heat on Miro. If that's the case, then go for it. If they plan on kind of, leaning into the whole crowd, because the crowd is behind him every week. It doesn't even matter where they're at. They love him because he's dominant. And it's kind of like the Goldberg thing. Like they loved Goldberg because Goldberg would beat people in 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
You mentioned Goldberg. I mean, to me, man, like Miro is one of the right now, the way he's being presented, and it's such an amazing transformation what's happened in this dude's short time in AEW.
Yes,
going from being the best man and video game enthusiast with Kip Sabian to being the Redeemer. I don't know if we've seen that kind of transformation in recent wrestling history. Pretty incredible.
Very quick.
But it does emphasize Miro is one of the rare, like he's one of the rare monsters that's presented and protected as a strong wrecking crew. And I think that's very important. I think for me, if you introduce Sammy into this as a contender, obviously there's personal feelings there. There's a reason and rationale for Sammy to emerge as a contender. And I know a lot of people out there would love to see Sammy Guevara as TNT champion. This kid has a ton of charisma, and he would I think with how he is on social media and his vlog and things like that, he'd be great for holding a championship in AEW without a doubt. But I'm kind of right now, I feel almost lousy saying this, but I feel like you hold back on having Miro face.
I want Miro to be the champ for a long time.
I kind of want to see Miro like wrecking some people, and maybe you throw in some believable challengers here and there. You throw in some names and some guys who are up and coming, like what we saw with a Brian Pillman Jr. I like that match a lot, right? You got that
was one of his best matches of his title reign, in my opinion. Brian Pillman looked like $1 million in that match, and it was a good match.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that kind of stuff is a way to build talent as well, man. You get a guy like Brian Pillman in the ring with Miro, and Brian Pillman's a big guy.
Yeah.
And he looked big against Miro. So you do that, and you're like, okay, Miro is presented as this monster, and if Brian Pillman can push him, then Brian Pillman now moves up the card. Even if he doesn't beat Miro, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. That's not the point. You get somebody that's in there that's under Miro now. You put him in there, present him in a way that maybe down the line he could beat Miro. It's smart. You're building your own talent that way. It's just it's smart, good booking.
And fresh off the heels of what we saw on Dynamite, you got to see like Dante Martin having an opportunity against Kenny Omega, and we got to see how much that meant for Dante and his career and his buzz, right? Like absolutely on point. I would like to see Miro having contenders like that. We're seeing people throwing names out there in the chat. I like where people are talking.
Brian Cage,
Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, these would be epic hoss battles to the nth degree. Would love to see that. I feel like, especially with what we're seeing right now, as SPD likes to talk about, the writing is on the wall. It feels like Kenny and the Elite, things are going to start coming unraveled for them. We're going to start we're going to start to see things starting to come unglued, and we're going to start to see them start to lose control. As that happens, and you see the once dominant champions start to kind of spiral, I do think that Miro does need to be that steady presence, that workhorse that emerges as the dominant champion of the brand right now.
Especially since he's over.
Right.
If it wasn't working, or if he was getting the heat reaction, if he was getting booed,
right.
I would say like, okay, maybe you do take the belt off him. If you're trying to get Kenny out of that spot and the Elite out of that spot, and you're going to go into a big program with those guys and just kind of have them go down, then you want somebody that's stable in there. But Miro's so over now. Yeah. It's kind of like the Britt Baker thing where it doesn't matter that they're heel.
I wanted to
over,
you're right.
And it doesn't matter.
He's because of how like their character, their in-ring work, everything is clicking. Sometimes Team Heel naturally loses those talents to Team Babyface just because it's so hard not to want to cheer for them, right?
That's the best way to make a babyface.
Exactly.
That's when it's organic, when you don't have to force it, and when it's somebody like him who could easily switch. He could easily switch.
Oh, absolutely. We can remember the Rusev Day, Rusev Day chants and things like that. I mean, the guy knows how to get over.
Yeah, and he's clearly over now, and he's not even trying. He's just that good. He's just that dominant, and it doesn't even. He's not trying to go over as a babyface. He's antagonizing the crowd, and they're just cheering him anyway. They're like, yeah, we hate ourselves too. Oh, this is great. Yeah, like it's
I hear you, man. I think that Penn, we got Penn threw out there Luchasaurus. I think that a lot of people are starting to see. You see Powerhouse Hobbs, we hadn't mentioned. You see Brian Cage. You see in Luchasaurus. I think a lot of people would love to see Miro in again, those battle of the horses. I know SPD is out there somewhere smiling that Luchasaurus was mentioned. But I do think that there are a lot of contenders out there that you could introduce in Miro's path before Sammy or the next champion kind of emerges, right? I think that you do need to protect Miro and allow him to have that run again, because I do see a lot of changes happening in the landscape, folks. I see that the Elite, this era of the Elite, is slowly starting to come to an end. Yeah. And I think that Miro needs to be that steady presence in the singles division that kind of everything revolves around, at least for the time being, right? And then you allow the next world champion to get their footing.
Miro could go into that picture as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're right.
I don't see a problem with that at all. I think that he's kind of working to that point now. I mean, the TNT title is the workhorse belt. In a lot of ways. And
you're right.
Miro's so over. I wouldn't be surprised in the next year he gets a sort of world title run if he's not the TNT champion anymore.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me at all.
And we there's a lot of people that we'd love to see emerge in that role that you can ask if they're ready. Miro is ready. I think that this run as TNT champion, all the stuff that he's done in his career, how he's grown, he's shown he's ready for the spotlight. He's ready to be that bankable commodity. The guy has charisma for days.
He's doing it now.
He's doing it. He's absolutely doing it.
I mean, they're putting him on commercials. He was in the Rampage ads. He's been all over the news, kissing babies, getting ice cream bars made after him. Like they love Miro.
You got to be beaming. So. You got to be beaming right now because I know Miro is one of your absolute favorites. And it is nice when you're behind someone early on and they blow up and you can kind of, okay,
the Seth Rollins thing for me.
You can kind of give yourself a little pat on the back and say, "Hey, man, I know what I'm talking about. I see it. I'm pretty good at this stuff. I can just
tell some guys have the it factor."
That's right, and Miro certainly does. Yeah. Speaking of people who have the it factor, and speaking of people who have been so good at being a heel that they have naturally become one of the most over baby faces in all of wrestling. Did you hear the pop that Britt Baker got in her hometown tonight? Absolutely bonkers. Red Velvet, bless her heart, had to lean into being a heel tonight and pivot because my God, was the fans in this arena in Pittsburgh were eating up everything that the Britt Baker did tonight. Just a killer presentation overall. Bonds, you know that I'm stoked. Even with the terrible towels, I almost gagged.
Disgusting to see.
I almost gagged at some point as a Browns fan. That said, that's how much I love the DMD. Yeah. That's how much I support the DMD. I think this woman is absolutely on fire, has been from the get-go. She's really connected and found that niche. When you see somebody who sort of recognizes their worth and knows what they're doing is working, like Britt Baker is doing right now, her confidence is untouched. I say it week after week, man. There are few commodities in wrestling that you can just check off that is just that bankable.
It's always going to work
every single time, man. I know that you and I both agree, from the beginning. We liked that presentation of Mark Henry having that dual interview with Red Velvet and Britt. I hope they do more of that and they embrace
that was cool. I like the unique, like that was different from Dynamite. It set it apart a little bit. They don't do that on Wednesdays. So that was something I liked for sure, but continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the presentation, obviously AEW was embracing the fact that this was a homecoming for Britt, right? Yeah. I mean, we all know
they didn't even
and to their credit, right? Like how many times have we seen it where, Ali gets buried again in Chicago. He gets buried in WWE losing against Mason T-Bar. We've seen CM Punk losing in Chicago before, time and time again.
The screw job happened in his hometown.
Happening in his own hometown. How often do we see that happen over the course of being a wrestling fan, where you're just like, why would you not throw people a bone and let them win? And I don't understand it for the life of me. But AEW seems
you can't do it every time, but yeah.
No, you can't. But when right now you strike while the iron's hot with the DMD, and that's coming from me, right? Like I have struggled a lot with this sort of natural transition that Britt's sort of adopting to becoming a liked heel, verging on babyface. I've struggled with that a little bit, but I mean, even I have to admit, dude, you got to strike while the iron's hot. The people love the DMD. She's on fire. And the people in this crowd ate it up. And I felt like as a main event, dude, the energy in that arena, it came through the screen. And if you're a casual viewer and you see something like that, I'm sorry, you have to embrace that. So I feel like AEW did a nice job of kind of looking at what would work tonight. Red Velvet kind of, hey, I didn't say it. You did.
And I also said that Canada's all one big town.
I knew it happened in Montreal. I know he's not from Montreal.
Fine. He's from Canada. It's all Canada. It's fine.
What was the Jericho line?
I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot.
I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot. That was great.
The guy yelled at him, go back to Toronto.
Yeah. You have to embrace that a little bit. I'll be honest with you, Bonds. The beginning of the match with the picture-in-picture, I usually let you and SPD do your little rants against the picture-in-picture because I'm in business.
It didn't even bother me tonight.
I usually understand. Yeah. I get it. I get why it's there, and I can't criticize AEW for doing that.
At least we get to see the match
tonight. The beginning of this match, if it was, I got to see Arby's new Southwestern chicken sandwich multiple times in one commercial break. It was fantastic to see it.
Looks great.
But they got those commercials out of the way early on. It felt like to allow the story to play out, and in a night where, again, a tight show. 3 matches. Not only the matches themselves were awesome, but the stories involved, the character work involved in all these matches, they all worked. And the story with Britt and her wrist was a weak point during this match, being focused in on by Red Velvet. It made sense. I liked how Red Velvet was going after that and how that was impacting Britt's attempts to get the lockjaw in place. I thought that made a lot of sense too. Bonds, I'll give you the floor for a little bit here. What did you think about this main event? And let's talk. I'll let you introduce post-match the antics that happened post-match, because DMD, she leaned into that heel vibe a little bit after the match itself, right?
She's still a heel.
Loved it.
Still a heel, bro. I mean, I really like this match. I mean, tonight was a home run in every aspect. Outside of a couple of stuff we'll probably talk about in a little bit after we talk about the show. We're gonna talk about some stuff with the production and everything. But I mean, I think Red did a great job embracing the heel stuff. It worked. I like that she was going after Britt's injury. Trying to use the lockjaw on Britt was awesome. Like, it's funny. I like when wrestlers try to use their opponent's finisher. It's like the biggest insult. So Red was really going in on the heel stuff, or
You're right.
Bread as they called her. And then when she was
Bread Velvet,
Bread Velvet, which sounds like a great name. I'm fine with it.
Hey man, you said that Bret Hart was from Montreal, so you can't make fun of anybody.
I don't care. It's all Canada. It's fine. It's fine. I love Canada. You guys are great. We go to NASCAR all the time. The Canadians are the best people.
Great, man. I work with a lot of. Yeah, they genuinely are. They know what they're doing.
That's why I'm fine talking a little trash, because I know they're just gonna be like, it's fine. Sorry, it's cool.
Sorry,
it's fine.
Sorry,
you know what I'm talking about. It's fine.
No, but you are right though. Like, seeing Red Velvet, props to her, right? Because like
she's to do that.
She's been presented to this point as like this, scrappy underdog babyface. And tonight, in the promo before the match, and in the match itself, when you're trying to lock in your opponent's finisher on them, and you're going after an injured body part, I mean, she was leaning into those heel vibes. She seemed to really enjoy that.
Oh, she couldn't be a babyface tonight, and she knew it. It was smart to not do that. I think they probably realized on Wednesday, when she got rains of booze came into the arena. Okay, we can't present her as the babyface here no matter what. There's no way, it's not going to work. And they probably pivoted, or they just knew better from the beginning. And the psychology of this match is great. I loved the fact that Red was going in there as the heel. She went and did some heel stuff. She did that on Wednesday when she attacked Britt during her celebration thing.
You're right.
She went in there and she did the same thing. So they're kind of leaning into it. Where Red Velvet's not a heel, she's not. But they have to have her do that stuff because Britt is over as a babyface. And I think that, this was honestly a good step in the right direction for Britt too.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. I think that needs to be said.
Yeah, because the first feud in her title reign didn't work, and it I don't think it was either performer's fault. It just didn't work. There wasn't any chemistry there.
No.
And this time we're starting to see some of that chemistry. I don't know if it's because Britt is being presented as the babyface, kind of, where she's like in a way where Red Velvet's going after her a little bit. Like, you're putting her in that, but it's not the same as Nyla, where Nyla kind of has it's different, man. I just don't know. It just works a little better here. The promos are different.
I think that Lori
put a finger on it.
Lori talks about it here, right? And I think that Lori's right. This is why the Nyla Britt Baker feud was so weird for me, because it was Nyla's naturally, just her presence alone is going to it's going to be very hard for her to be a babyface, just because she's bigger, stronger. She just has that vibe to her that it's going to, in the way that she's been presented, going to be hard for her to pivot from that. And Britt, up until that point, although incredibly popular and although so many people out there wanted to see her become champion, was really one of the more like nasty heels in the company, right? Like,
also we got to remember that was before the crowds were back. Like, she was doing all that stuff without crowd reactions.
That's true.
So that probably really, really made her face turn go like way slower than it could have.
Yes.
Because I think it would have happened naturally a long time ago if we had crowds.
You're right.
And it's just probably what happened. They were ready for it, and they just were like, no, no, we're not. It doesn't matter. We don't want this. This is what we want. We want her to be a babyface. We want to cheer for Britt Baker. It doesn't matter. And they're going to cheer no matter what. And they did, even though that feud didn't work. And here they're leaning into it more. Britt's not, even though she did at the end of the match, but she has to. She's Britt Baker. She's a nasty jerk, but she's still a likable nasty jerk because her promos are better than everybody else's. She's got more charisma than everybody else, and she's getting better in the ring every time she wrestles and is more entertaining every time she wrestles. So it's hard to not root for somebody like that, even though, like, we all hate MJF, right? All of us do.
Right.
I love MJF because he's better at his job.
He's so good at it.
Everybody else.
Right.
So so for me, it's like, that's why he's the number one pick in the draft for me. Cause it's like, this guy's just better than everybody and he knows it and you know it. And even though he's the least likable person on the planet, he's also so good at what he does,
right?
That it doesn't matter how unlikable they are,
And that's
Britt.
that's you said it. That's Britt. I've always said it from the beginning of Dynamite Download. I've said Britt Baker is. Everybody acknowledges what MJF brings to the table. Such a consistent promo.
Yeah.
Excellent heel. Britt is the female version of MJF in AEW. You can count on her time after time.
MJF as a babyface is different.
But here's my point.
Yeah.
Right. Britt Baker post match. It was interesting, right? Statlander came in. Statlander was getting boos, and in Pittsburgh, that's to be expected,
Makes
right?
Sense. Yeah.
But AEW did a smart pivot here in that I think that they're embracing the fact that Britt is still going to keep what makes her the DMD. Keeps her. This is what I've been trying. This is what I was worried about when I saw things. The Nyla Britt Baker feud was. It threw Britt off a little bit. It made her, I think, ditch some of what her natural tendencies, what we've seen, because she started to lean into more of those overt, obvious babyface vibes, and that was like, this doesn't feel like the same Britt Baker that we've been used to seeing, and the one that got over as much as she has. Yeah. And so I think that what they did was very smart. And that's embracing the natural dynamics of the story, regardless of crowd reaction. Because, again, give the people what they want, as SPD and Excalibur always like to say. Point. Give the people what they want. They had Britt Baker have a nice, fantastic win in her hometown, defended her title. She looked like a conquering hero, defending against Red Velvet. But then after the match, quickly pivot into Statlander coming in, who could potentially now emerge as her new challenger, which, hey, Statlander versus Britt Baker at All Out. I don't think
she beat Nyla on Wednesday.
Again, who says it? I think Nyla's role has become very, very clear now. Nyla, they spent a lot of time early on when the women's division was not as deep and not as, I think, diverse as it is now. Nyla was a main attraction of the women's division and was presented as the most dominant figure in the division. And so now they put that work in so that no matter what, Nyla can eat a couple losses and she's still going to keep that credibility because of all the work. Right. So now you get her as the gatekeeper, as Crayfish always likes to say. She elevated Statlander now, legitimizes Statlander, heading into a matchup against Britt as the potential challenger. And again,
all out.
Leaning into these natural heel and face dynamics, Statlander is a baby face through and through, especially with her pairing with the best friends. Everyone likes to boop. Everyone loves Statlander's offense. She presents herself in a way that's very exciting and unique, a really rare blend of athleticism, size, speed, all of it. And at post-match, with the DMD, curb stomping, Velvet, and using the belt and doing those things, those cheap shots. Statlander coming in to make the save, and then Jamie Hayter, a returning Jamie Hayter, which was phenomenal to see. Dude,
that was
Jamie Hayter looks like such a different person. I mean, again, if you follow her on social media, it didn't happen overnight. This woman is putting in work.
Yeah.
But she looked incredible tonight and adds that muscle behind the DMD, right? We've seen it. Rebel has been a lot of fun as a sidekick for the DMD and somebody who has helped Britt keep her momentum going.
Right.
But now you add a legitimate badass on the DMD side. It only serves to elevate Britt, make her that much more difficult to overcome. Now she can talk the trash that she talks and have that, just like MJ, how
Wardlow
fitting how fitting, how poetic. You have Wardlow and MJF. You have Hayter emerge as sort of the Wardlow for the DMD. I think it makes a lot of sense.
The only thing I'm worried about with the Statlander stuff with Britt is that I think that it'll work. The whole Britt Baker kind of being Britt while also being a babyface is going to work against heels. And I think that you can continue to have her do her stuff and be Britt Baker and just go after people and do stuff post-match. If you're wrestling somebody that's a heel, you can do that. They'll cheer you. You're beating up a heel. Who cares? People cheered when The Miz got thrown into, Lake Tahoe and his car got vandalized. They don't care. You could do whatever you want to somebody if they're the bad guy. It doesn't matter. When you're talking about Statlander's also super over as a babyface.
Is.
And when you have, Chris in there with Britt, you're going to split the crowd because people are still going to cheer Britt.
They will.
It's, and that's fine. And I think that they could have a really cool program. And again, depending on how it goes, maybe Britt will be a little more of a heel still, or she'll maybe be over as a babyface. Depends on how the crowd reacts.
That's what I'm here for, right? I'm here for that because I know that I'm not alone. And we even had conversations with the DMD about this, right? Like I was personally kind of freaking out a little bit when I saw the Nyla versus Britt feud because I was like,
because it looked like it was going that way.
They're taking away what makes the DMD, right? I was freaking out a little bit, having that mini panic attack inside.
Right.
And Britt was like, chill. All right, chill out. Team heel, Britt, team heel for life, right? And I think that what we saw tonight was the best of both worlds. It showed AEW was very smart. Don't fight the crowd. Allow the fans to have the moment where Britt gets to be the good person, the good guy in her hometown. She gets to win, but quickly followed up post-match with Statlander, who I think is a great competitor for Britt because she is such a natural babyface. She is babyface through and through. Britt then allows to be able to embrace those nasty heel tendencies that she has, kind of embrace those cheap shots, going to use Jamie Hayter to kind of, again, Jamie being perfectly inserted in this potential next program because as a fan of DMD, I've had to defend it. Britt going against somebody like Statlander. Statlander has the size and has the athleticism to be somebody who could really challenge Britt and put Britt on her heels. And I've always liked when Britt is presented as the powerhouse. I love those, but it's going to put Britt in a different scenario. And so you have Jamie Hayter coming in, kind of evening those odds and kind of making sure that Statlander doesn't have those clear advantages. You start to question, okay, does the DMD, is she outsmarted her competition once again?
Right.
I like what they did here, Bonds, because I think that they are acknowledging that the fans love Britt, but they're also allowing and they're keeping intact why we love Britt.
And letting her still be herself.
Dude, it's cool. If you want to love Britt Baker like Crayfish and cheer for her, even though she's a heel, great. But don't let her turn into this goody two shoes. Now that she's getting cheers, don't let her lose that edge. And I think that tonight was a perfect way to remind everybody Britt's not losing that edge anytime soon, folks. I mean, if you're going to do a curb stop on someone's face into a title belt after the match, after you beat them, that's pure heel move. And then if you're going to have somebody come out afterwards and help, right? I mean,
we're going to see how it works. Like this, if it is Statlander, we're going to see how this works because we're going to see it. Okay, is it going to work where Britt can just go against whoever? And if Britt is, against the heel, she's just the natural baby face and still does her own stuff. Or if she's against the baby face, does the crowd kind of turn on her a little bit? That's good. We'll see how it works. It's going to be kind of testing the waters.
I agree with you on that because in the Nyla Rose feud, you could tell that was their intention though, right? Like that was their intention was to say, all right, like Nyla is probably the most definitive heel on this roster outside of Britt. Right, you don't
Britt recently, so you have a built-in storyline.
Great point. She beat Britt in the women's tournament earlier in the year, so you got to say all right, Nyla has the credibility. She's not going to get the cheers. She's not going to split the crowd. She's clearly the heel. How is the DMD going to work as a face? The dynamics of that feud just did not work, and I think we're not in the minority when we say that. It was not clicking for us here at Dynamite Download. In all due respect, I always try really.
It's never about the performers, man.
No, it just wasn't working.
Chemistry doesn't work. And it's fine. But the storytelling is just not where it needs to be. It was a quick feud. They had a couple weeks, and it just didn't work. And it was all based on Big Macs. You know what I mean? You can't. You can't really.
Really, it came from Nyla's jealousy. Nyla's jealousy, but yeah, you're right. She flipped over some Big Macs, and that got the feud started. Come on, that's stupid, right? But
Big Macs are great. I get it. I feel it, man.
I can get down with some Mickey
Get rid of that middle
bro.
bun, though. That thing's
worthless.
Bread.
Yeah,
worthless.
Do the Bond special. Order a double cheeseburger with Big Mac sauce, and you're good.
And you're good.
The Bond special. No, but honestly, like you make a great point, Bonds, is that this is a great extension of the concept of what AEW was trying to dip their toes into with the Nyla feud. Can Britt Baker work as a babyface in some ways, or like? Is she going to be able to, or like, is she so over now that she's too popular for us to have her be a heel? Like the reaction during this feud with Statlander is going to be interesting, right? Like, are people going to cheer her no matter what? Or can we embrace her being a heel and allow this title reign to extend with other babyface contenders and let Britt still kind of rock out and do her thing? Because if not, if she's that over that you can't go back anymore, then I think you do need to start to question, like, all right, like, we're not going to go into a Ty Conti program. No. Like, the only baby, like, I'm telling you, man, like, Thunder Rosa is really the only one that I think would, if in that scenario, immediately, no matter what Britt's doing, would turn Britt heel all over again, right?
If that's the plan, then that's the plan.
You got to start to like AEW needs to look at the landscape of their division and say, like, all right, has Britt, what she's done, worked so much that we have to start to try to see if she can work more as a babyface in these programs because we don't want to split the crowd too much, or can we count on her for being that undisputed heel and allow other baby faces to get reactions? Because the last thing you want to do is put somebody like Statlander, or Ty Conti isn't another name that I know a lot of people want to see get a shot. Give her that chance and then have that pop neutered because 80% of your fan base loves Britt Baker, right? You need to toy around with this a little bit, and I think that this is a good way of doing that.
Seeing how the crowd reacts is like, I'm sure they didn't expect the whole arena to boo Red Velvet. You know what I mean? Like, even though it is Britt's hometown, I don't think they expected like the whole crowd to be like, okay, like they expected some people to treat it the way it's supposed to work. Like you cheer for the good guy and you boo the bad guy. You got to do that. But like they didn't insult anybody's intelligence, but it was just like they don't want that to happen again. You don't want to have Chris Statlander come out and get booed. Even though they've spent so much effort making her look great since she's come back from injury.
Great point,
she's looked awesome, and she's done a great job. She's done everything right, and you don't want to put her in a position where you're gonna totally screw up her push.
Right.
And I'm sure they're like, okay, they know what they have in Britt. They don't want to put anybody out like a sacrificial lamb. You can't do that, especially when your division the women's division isn't incredibly deep for people that are championship level. So when you have somebody like Statlander who looks like they could be the next major contender,
for sure,
you can't mess that
up.
You have to make that just work. And yeah, man, I think that's kind of, they're going to be testing it here. I hope it works. I hope, they do it the right way and we get to see some really cool stuff between those two, because I think they can have a really good match. And that'd be an awesome all-out match, because, I mean, Statlander's been one of the top, in my opinion, top 3 or 4 women competitors just in the ring since she's been back.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's really like, she's right up there with the top, and it's been fun. So I think that her and Britt could just have a barn burner. Yeah, agreed. I mean, Statlander has been she's clearly in the best shape that she's been in since being in AEW. Mm-hmm. Her endurance looks. Jim Ross likes to point out.
Yeah, her endurance is better than ever. And you could tell her training, like she's pushing herself to say, like, all right, like I'm going for it. Statlander is going for it. And I think having her come out and make the save tonight, although she got booed, in another setting, in a different crowd, I mean, it could have gone very differently, bro. I think so we need to put a little grain of salt on what happened tonight.
Cheered everywhere. It's not.
I'll be cheering for her in Chicago when we're there.
Me too.
And I know people out there will be mad at me.
Well, we're all gonna have DMD signs.
I know people will be mad for me cheering on the heels, but I mean, Britt's charismatic, man. The woman is a star. There's no denying it. It is what it is. Oh my gosh.
For Edge, all those years, man. He's just charismatic and great, and smart and good competitor. It's like what I like in professional wrestling. I go, okay, John Cena, you talk nice to me, that's fine. Like you're sweet talking me, John, but you do 3 moves. I don't care about that. Like it's fine. I want to see people who do like awesome and cut good promos and do their stuff. And it doesn't matter that she's a heel. I'm gonna be cheering for Britt because that's just what I do, man. Same thing as you. It's fine.
Right.
We root for Kenny, and Kenny's the biggest jerk in the industry other than MJF.
And I get like I think we're at a point where we have to recognize like heel and babyface is very important, and that is
wrestling.
That is the basis of professional wrestling, and we need to hold that in a high regard. We need to respect that and the sanctity of that, right? We need
the internet age and no territories anymore, and everything's completely different. It's not the 90s, not the 80s, not the 70s. With the internet, and everybody's a smart now, you have to change with the times. And I think that there's a clear difference between what you see on some TV shows, some channels, and across the ocean and here in America, and what you see in AEW, because they're not insulting their fans' intelligence. And Renee Young talked about it recently, where she's like, there's a difference between WWE and AEW, and I don't want to bring up WWE, it's fine, but like I just don't want to get in on that. But she said that there's like less insulting of the fans' intelligence because they understand, like, okay, people are going to root for the bad guy sometimes. It's natural. When somebody's naturally gifted at being charismatic, it doesn't matter if you're a good guy or a bad guy. If you can get every eye on you in the room, it doesn't matter if you're spitting in their face or giving them a handshake and giving them a high five. It doesn't matter.
I agree with you 100%. I think if all of us are being honest with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
If we all look deep down, we can all find an example or 2 or 3 or 4 of heels that we love. Like, I know people out there, there's a big fan base for Wardlow, right? Like Wardlow has been a heel. Think about some of the things that man has done to the inner circle, and some of the and on behalf of MJF, some of the terrible things that Wardlow's done. Now, am I going to not like Wardlow because he's a mean person and he does bad things? The dude is a powerhouse. He wrestles exactly how I'm a big Brock Lesnar was on my Mount Rushmore. Yeah. He's the closest thing to a young Brock Lesnar that I've seen in pro wrestling since Brock Lesnar. So, I mean, he's the next big thing in my eyes. I love Wardlow, and you're not going to convince me to stop liking him because of that. And Britt Baker falls into the similar category. Yeah, I love what she's doing. She could tell me that I'm a piece of garbage. I'm still going to cheer for her, right? And there are babies.
She's right.
And I am a piece of trash. But there are baby faces that each of us that we could say, I'm not down with that guy or that girl. Like, it's just not my cup of tea, right? Like, I think we're being honest with ourselves. That's the beautiful thing about what you just said. Although there is something that we have to suspend our belief and buy into the story.
It's like watching a movie.
At the end of the day, you can still respect the actor, even though they're a bad guy. You can still respect their work.
Great.
He's like so
Tom
good.
Hardy is Bane, man. He was great against Bruce Wayne. He beat the crap out of Christian Bale. That was awesome. And it's like, and then you go root for him when he's Mad Max, and then you go hey, Mad Max, you're the man.
Exactly, bro. And so I think that's important as wrestling fans start we have to evolve with the times. The product is evolving with the times. I do think that it's very important that like not everybody is in like the gray area, right? Like where they're like,
no, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You like baby faces and heels. That's what makes this whole thing work. That's what keeps the machine going. But I don't think that it's a bad thing that you're honest with yourself and recognize like, hey man, like I'm digging what the DMD is doing. Like, hey, jump aboard. Hey, again, for me, I'm the leader of Team Heel, and I'm the guy on this crew who's cheering for Darby Allin more than anybody, right? So like you have to like be able to be multifaceted and recognize talent is talent, right? So Bonds, tonight's show, a phenomenal debut for Rampage. Yep. I personally loved how tight this show felt. I hope that this format is what they continue down the road. If they keep 3 matches that are story based, they build those 3 matches, they keep
1 or 2
tight.
promos.
it works, man. And this is one of the things that you talked about. And, we can transition into Dynamite a little bit too, because I know we didn't get a chance to talk
some
about
Dynamite
that
too. Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Dynamite this week because of power. I'm over. You don't see Mitch with us tonight, folks.
Mitch is at home.
I'm not home. So that said, on Dynamite, we got to see like a lot of this type of stuff also play out, Bonds, where you're starting to question. AEW is embracing how deep this roster is, but in your column, I could tell there were moments where you were like, not just because the roster is stacked does not mean that everybody has to be on the show, right? Not like there. Sometimes you need to let stuff breathe. Sometimes you need to allow stories or feuds or matches that moment to breathe. And think about how, like, we've had moments where this has felt like, when the Young Bucks ended SCU. Remember, like, when that happened, when it felt like, man, like they just rushed through this. Like, why? Yeah. Like, and I could tell that this last week's episode of Dynamite, you had some moments when I read your column where you were like, man, like they could have cut this segment, or they didn't need to push this in. Let some of this grow. And that's why I thought Rampage's format tonight was so refreshing, because although we love Dynamite, that those 2 hours of Dynamite fly by, and they somehow find a way to keep it entertaining and fluid, and there's always more elites than a deletes. It always works.
Yeah.
It was nice where I felt like, man, I didn't have ADHD tonight. Like I was able to just focus and keep track of what was going on. I really liked how tight this show was, and maybe this will help bleed over into Dynamite, where now that they have another avenue, I know that there are fans out there. Chris is chomping at the bit for you to acknowledge Dark a little bit, and what his favorite performer has been able to accomplish on Dark, Sheeta.
Yeah, I see it, man. I'll just address this really quick. You've been talking about Sheeta. I like Sheeta as a performer. I think Sheeta's a great wrestler. I've seen her on Dynamite twice since I've been doing this. And it's hard for me to get behind somebody, especially when they're the champion, when they're on TV like once a month or once every 2 months. And so for me, as somebody that's covering the show, even though I like Sheeta as a performer, and I think she's done great stuff when I've gotten to watch her wrestle, when I see somebody who's the champion and they're not on the show, it makes it so I'm like, okay, I lose interest. I don't want to like care about them. I just want them to lose their title because I want somebody to actually defend it. So for me, a lot of the time, during Sheeta's reign, when I first started doing this with Crayfish and SPD, like she wasn't on TV, she wasn't doing anything. And then she finally lost the title, and it's like, okay, now the women's belt is like on TV every week. There's a segment every week. And so for me, I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I wanted. I wish she was doing stuff on TV. I wanted to see her on TV. It felt like Sheeta was an absentee champion for months. And it was like, man, like, she's just not. And I know she was like doing stuff with the women's tournament, and she was on Dark, and she was like in doing stuff like overseas even stuff. Like it's not that she wasn't doing stuff. It's just like when I'm focusing on Dynamite, like my column's about Dynamite. Like my main focus is Dynamite. Like I don't watch Dark every week. I don't watch Dark Elevation every week. I'm not gonna pretend I do. I never pretend I do.
No,
it's a lot of wrestling, and
we watch some. We watch highlights and things like that. I'll watch an episode if like a buddy's hitting me up like, man,
yeah, if it's like, hey, dude, this match is great, I'll turn it on.
I went out of my way to watch, that recently Pac versus Jack Evans was on Dark not that long ago, and
I'm surprised you didn't watch that one like before. You love both those guys. Those are your favorites.
Well, exactly. Those like I love me some dirtbag Jack Evans. Pac's my favorite wrestler on the planet. So I'm gonna go out of my way to watch that, right? But Dark, even though they showcase a lot of great talents, their matches are usually like so
very
fast,
quick, 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
And to be fair, like Rampage is a different animal. It
feels like
an
extension. It's an extension of Dynamite. You know what I mean? It feels like it's like Dynamite's left arm that it doesn't have yet. It needed another hour. And honestly, like we talked about how the show feels, right? How the show feels like the pacing was great. It didn't have like too many segments. I kind of hope that what we start seeing out of Rampage is we see less stuff on Dynamite. We go from like having 20 segments on Dynamite to having, 15 segments on Dynamite. And then we see 5 segments on Rampage, and we get a little bit better pacing on Dynamite, because sometimes the pacing is way too breakneck and they skip over too much stuff and they don't let stuff simmer and they don't give stuff the moment it deserves, which is my, like, I love Dynamite, but if I have one big criticism of the show, it's that the pacing oftentimes can be breakneck to where I'm trying to pay attention because I'm writing a column about this.
Right.
And I can't even enjoy the moment because I'm literally typing out notes the entire time.
And like, to your credit, bro, like, on Dynamite Download, the post show that SPE and I do, we oftentimes we tighten it up a little bit and we try to focus in on the biggest moments of the night. But to your credit, you do your due diligence. I mean, if people aren't reading the column, they're missing out, but you do your due diligence. You touch on every single segment. If it's a promo, and you're right. I mean, this last week, the Andrade versus Death Triangle stuff.
There didn't need to be 2 segments there.
And quite honestly, the Andrade segment kind of hurt like the work that the Death Triangle put in at the beginning of the night, right? Like the Pac promo, the message that was sent, it was very clear. There doesn't
always need to be a rebuttal. There doesn't always need to be a rebuttal on TV the same week. Like, let it simmer next week. Brian Cage and Ricky Starks don't need to have the same promo back and forth every week until they have a match. Have them off TV for a little bit, or have them maybe take out Brian Cage so then they can have Ricky Starks talking trash, and then Ricky Starks goes over as a heel, and it's not, they're not trying to repeat themselves like, oh man, like we keep missing each other, Brian Cage, but I'm still gonna beat you up. I'm still gonna be, the champ, and it's like,
right,
man, like if it doesn't feel necessary, it probably isn't necessary.
Good point.
And I think sometimes less
keep it
more.
simple. Keep it simple, stupid. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, so I agree with you. I think that like Rampage, that tonight, it was really nice. It felt like a tight, concise, intelligent show, well paced, and maybe there is a little bit more room for that to become. Maybe like you said, they introduced 5 matches on some shows or whatever, right? Maybe you add another promo,
matches, but segments,
promos or segments, right? Agreed.
Right.
That said,
I think 5 matches would be too much.
Yes, that would be too much. You're right. That said, what are some, like, coming off the heels of your first Rampage?
Yeah.
What is one thing that you expected to see tonight and that you didn't, that you were disappointed by, and what's one thing that you saw tonight that was exciting or promising that maybe surprised you that AEW did?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the surprising thing because we just talked about it. I thought the pacing was awesome. I thought the pacing was perfect. It was like watching, like, it felt like I wanted a second hour. Like the whole time I was like, man, like this is almost over. I want there to be a second hour of this because the pacing was so great. We didn't have too many promos. We had a couple matches. The second match was nothing. It was quick. And it was like, man, like this is really cool. This is really fast. Like everything's going really well. There was like no weird stuff that happened sometimes with AEW. There was no like nobody dropped a light and fell, and then we're like, oh man, like now this is gonna ruin the show, and they're gonna talk about this on the internet forever. Like it was like perfectly done, perfect. It felt like a condensed episode of Dynamite. It felt like I was watching Dynamite on Hulu and skipping through all the garbage. Which there's no garbage on Dynamite, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean.
So it felt like an episode of Raw without the garbage. But so
no comment.
Going to the bad stuff. But for the stuff that I guess I was disappointed. There wasn't really anything that I was looking forward to seeing that I didn't see. But I would say that the 4-man commentary team felt a little much. I felt like they kind of tried to talk over each other a little bit. And part of that's because, lack of experience with each other. Mm-hmm. But I do think 4-man commentary team is a little much, especially when you're going to probably have guests on once in a while. That's 5 people in it. I think 3 is the magic number. Just because then you kind of have a little more downtime, a little more like you can let the matches breathe. There's not always somebody talking because it felt, again, if there's one criticism I had, because I love this episode of Rampage, it was great. It was that there was some stuff like talking over in the commentary, and that's going to happen. Like that's going to go away with time and experience together. And, you know, obviously like Mark Henry's not on commentary very much, but he didn't add a lot either. He didn't talk very much. So like, I want to see Mark Henry get a little more involved on commentary. I want to see what he can do on commentary, brings to the table. You know, because right now you've got, you know, all these guys are wrestlers.
I felt like Mark Henry and
these guys are all
Taz
super experienced in there, and they have like all this stuff, and Jericho shouting, as everybody says. I kind of enjoy that about Chris. I enjoy that he's excited and energetic, but I agree he doesn't need to yell every time he talks. You know, he doesn't need to always be like, "Oh man, Excalibur, this is insane." It's kind of he gives me Jerry Lawler vibes, a little bit, on commentary, which is cool. I like Jerry Lawler, so like I like it, and he's like Jerry Lawler without like the weird,
like creepy,
yeah,
less creepy
great,
Jerry,
you know? He's like a less creepy Jerry Lawler.
It was great.
So which is fine, it's perfect. And I liked the dynamic of the team. I just thought that maybe 4 is a little much. You know, you got your color guy, and then you got like I personally, and I talked about this on Twitter tonight. I like the 2-man teams, man. Like I like classic Raw, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, and I love having those 2 voices. And to me, that's like perfect.
Yeah,
but 3 works on Dynamite, and I think 3 would work on Rampage. I think having an hour show with 4 guys like constantly talking over each other is a little much, and hopefully they work on that. But I want to hear you, man. What are something that you thought was awesome, and you can speak on my stuff as well.
Well, I mean, I think that like the commentary thing kind of needed to be addressed a little bit. I agree with you. Like it did feel like Taz and Mark Henry kind of got lost a little bit in the shuffle, and that it obviously Excalibur.
Which was surprising for Taz because Taz is so experienced.
Yeah, but I think that like Excalibur he's got his niche, right? That dude is unique, and there's a reason why they have him on virtually every show.
He's so good at it.
He's so good at being that straight man who's smart, knowledgeable about the product, about wrestling history, just a really great straight man. I think that Mark Henry's interview backstage kind of presence was working a lot, and if I was in a role where we just talked to QT Marshall, so if I'm QT Marshall's right hand man, I'd be whispering to him, man, like I would experiment with maybe having Mark Henry be the interview guy, or the official interview guy of Rampage, right? And maybe you allow him to start to then it spills over to Dynamite. If the more comfortable he gets with that, the better. I know a lot of people criticize Jericho tonight. I think that Jericho is really funny. I think he adds a lot of personality and excitement to what we're seeing. This was not the best version of Jericho on commentary that we've seen. I think that
He's
Jericho
been great on Dynamite, which is why it was like so weird that he wasn't being the same. Maybe it was just the excitement of the night. It's the first episode of Rampage. You know, he's got a big match coming up as well, and you know, Chris Jericho is the man. So like, I'm gonna give him some time. This is his first time as a full-time commentator as well.
Agreed.
And I want to let him create his own voice and get his voice. I'm not going to criticize it. But I do agree. Like he didn't feel like how he's felt on Dynamite. It felt like he was like, okay, like now I'm trying to make my voice. It's like, just be you, man. Just be you. You're good. You're already good. You're already fine. Like it's just be Chris Jericho. You're good.
Agreed. So I think that they're going to need to allow those guys to get their legs to them and see how things work.
Fair.
It's the first night, right?
Yeah.
But I think that from AEW's track record, they're going to pay attention to what's working, what's not, and they will pivot. That said, I was surprised by and somewhat disappointed by the lack of faces that we saw tonight. And again, I liked how tight the show was. Don't get me wrong. But it felt like Rampage. How do I put this? Like to me, it felt like Rampage was going to be a show that was going, and again, first episode, but that was going to allow talents that don't get the time on Dynamite all the time to have a showcase. So like for me, I was really expecting tonight to have some sort of Jade presence. I felt like Jade was going to be. I mean, it just felt like Jade was a Rampage. I don't know why. I just Jade and Rampage
did a lot of promotion with Jade.
I just. And again, it's the first episode, so I don't blame AEW for throwing Miro and Kenny.
To be fair, man, we saw Red Velvet and Fuego wrestle.
That's true.
And those are two faces we don't see on Dynamite often.
That's a good point.
And so we did see them, and we saw 3 title matches. Every single match was a title match.
Great point. Good counter.
So, we had, but I agree, man. Like I would love to see some talent that we've been kind of promoting. To be like people that haven't been on as much on Dynamite, like Jade, who's been on TV but hasn't wrestled, like other than Dark. I think she finally wrestled on Dark this week, but she had like 2 months off,
right?
Before that, so
right.
It's so for that, it's like, man, I feel it, but again, you gotta also see, like, we did have 2 new faces or 2 fresh faces in that.
Yeah, I will give you that. I mean, as a counter, you're right. I will totally give you that. Like Red Velvet being in a world title match is not something that I would expect normally. Yeah. So that's a great point by you. I agree. I think that's a good counter.
And I'm not trying to counter your point.
I get it. I get it. I guess I did. You did get to see Orange Cassidy in the background.
That was interesting.
Like the Christian promo was interesting.
I was waiting for something to happen there. I was like, what's Orange doing?
Is he going to say something?
Is he going to do anything? He's just kind of like hanging out.
Yeah, which I liked. I kind of like he's just chilling.
He's just like watching what's going on, man.
That's going to be something, though, that like for me, I guess disappointed is the wrong word. But I think that going forward, that's going to be something that I'm going to be keen on and I'll be watching regularly. Is this going to be the showcase for? Are we going to see more of the same from Dynamite, or are we going to be able to see like some fresh faces emerge? I think that AEW really is desperate to have this extra hour to give more people those opportunities. So again, you're right. Fuego, Red Velvet, both of them having matches. I mean, big title matches, not something that you would normally see. So I can give you that. But I guess I was expecting to see more of what we saw from Dynamite, which is like more segments and more content. And I guess that was where my head was at. I was kind of expecting to see more faces on this show.
It's almost felt like its own standalone, but again, we do have to remember it was the first episode. Like they wanted to start it off with a bang. They did. They started off by changing the Impact title.
That was huge.
On Impact, on AEW television. We saw the TNA. I'm going to call it TNA for my whole life because that's what I remember it as.
Yeah.
We saw the Impact Championship switch hands on AEW. That's massive, and we're
pretty huge.
We just saw a New Japan title change on Dynamite.
Great
recently.
Point, Bonds.
We're getting to see a lot of cool stuff, guys. I mean, that was awesome. People don't realize how big of a deal that is. We saw in the last month and a half. We've seen 2 titles from other major companies change hands on AEW. That door, man, it is open. That
wide open, bro.
It's gone, baby. Yep. It's like we're seeing stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really
great point. Yeah, I mean that AEW embracing that. It's been a beautiful thing. I mean, we saw the TNA, the Impact World Tag Team Championships defended on Dynamite. You're seeing more and more of those things, which I think you're getting. I mean, you're getting more eyes on the products. You're diversifying it. I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing more. I don't know about you, bro. I felt like Rampage, like you said, it felt like I could have had another hour afterwards. There's that much.
Make it 9 o'clock then, please, though.
Seriously.
Go till midnight.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. I hear you, man.
But I feel it though, man. It was really cool. This episode was really cool.
It was a lot of fun.
I wanted another hour so bad because again, I love Dynamite, but the pacing here. For me personally, I like the matches, man. I like the promos and stuff.
All 3 title matches were
all
killer.
3 title matches, and the second one was a squash match, and they were still filled that
a lot
hour
of fun,
up, perfectly. It like the pacing was great, and I know that you had a problem with the picture-in-picture in the last match, but like to me, it didn't take me out of the match. It usually does, and for me, it didn't. I literally looked at it. It was like a 3-minute commercial, and it felt like a long 3 minutes. I know, but it was. Man, I just thought I was into the match. I kept watching. A lot of times I tune out.
At some point in it, I was like, dude, AEW's brilliant in that. Like, even though I was a little frustrated, I remember seeing the second Arby's commercial during that commercial break. I was like, AEW knows what they're doing. No one's changing the channel right now. Like DMD, main event, no one's changing the channel. So like they're just that primo advertisement, brilliant move by them.
Have like the same ad play like 7 times and just see what you know what I mean. Like just have the match play the commercial 7 times in a row, and I won't even notice if it's a good match. And that's kind of where I was at. I thought that match was awesome. I thought that Red played.
What was your match of the night?
Oh man. First one, Christian winning that title. I thought the psychology was great. I thought that like it was for people not like us who look into everything way too much. It was a surprise. You and I overanalyze everything, so we're always like, like we have 1,200 different like variations of what the next show could be. You know what I mean? So
true.
It for us, like we were both expecting Christian to win because we talked ourselves into it. And then he did, and we're like, neat, we were right. Cool.
Yeah.
But like if you were there, imagine you're there, man. Like you see Kenny, who's been like undefeated for months. He's been the man. And then he goes in there, the first match on Rampage, he gets upset. And it was an upset. Like I love Christian, but it was an upset. It was an upset, man. You see Christian win a title from a different company on AEW TV on its first episode. Like,
pretty sweet,
dude. That's a pretty cool moment.
Pretty sweet.
That's like awesome, and I'm glad it was only one title change. I'm glad they didn't like go crazy, and it was just like the one that because again, with Kenny having so many belts, you can do that. Like you can still have him be he's still the champ. He's still Kenny Omega, AEW World Champion, the man.
Yeah.
But now there's a little chick in that armor, and you're like, okay. Like now he can lose.
Yes, exactly. Like, and Christian's promo afterwards talking about like I'm in your head now. I'm in your head now. You know that I can beat you. I just did. Yeah. That was really great stuff. And to start the show off that way, man, like it felt like we were watching a big fight. Like it felt like if you're a UFC fan out there, it just had that like big fight feel to it. And credit to them because the buzz around Christian versus Kenny was not hot. On Wednesday, on Wednesday, right? Like the crowd was giving CM Punk chants when he was announced as the contender,
and I felt so bad for those guys.
But for them, for Christian to be able to turn that on, pivot immediately, that could have been something that would have ruined somebody's confidence or thrown them off had it been somebody other than Christian. He was able to pivot from that quickly, get the crowd back on his side, and again. Like it was a lot of fun to see him tonight get over on Kenny. And I think the nostalgia, it's important to acknowledge that too. Like the nostalgia, it hits you right in the right spots.
It's seeing
Christian as the TNA heavyweight champion again just feels right. It just feels right.
Yeah, because I mean that's where Christian really was able to be like to go out on his own. We talk about that and like he got to be the man in TNA. Like before, he was kind of another guy that was a good tag team guy. And you know how Vince values his tag teams.
Right.
And then once Edge got that push, it felt like Christian was kind of, in like a intercontinental level, which there's nothing wrong with that. I love that belt. I think that's one of the best belts there's been for workhorses, but it didn't seem like he was ever going to ascend to that next level. He was
never when he had those like matches against Randy Orton and he did become world heavyweight champion
it didn't feel like they were in on him.
He was never presented in a way that was like, this is the guy like Edge was, right? And for him, like when he branched out and he went to Impact and became the guy,
it was awesome.
That was a big moment for his career. I think you're right. I think that really changed things. And Laurie said it really well. That was some of the best work of his career.
It was the best work of his career. It was.
That says a lot.
Yeah. And again, like I'm an Edge head, and his stuff with Edge was awesome. But like the Brood stuff was great. I love Christian all the way back to when he started in WWE. Like I've been watching him for 20 years. You know what I mean? And I think that his Impact stuff, his TNA stuff, was like him knowing like this is my shot to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy, and he put it all out there, man. And that's when we liked TNA too, man. When Christian was there is when we watched. And so we really got to see him blossom out at that time. So it was cool. And it's cool to see them do that tonight because like they had a part in that. They're like, yeah, man, like put the strap on Christian.
Heck
like, yeah. Like that's awesome. And I'm sure he's going to be on their shows and he's going to get them a bunch of like, because imagine now you have the Impact title change on AEW. And now like, oh man, everybody's going to watch Impact, see what happens.
Yep.
Like, so now like, this cross promotion, like all these cross promotions are building up all these other companies. It's not just building up AEW. They're building up New Japan. They're building up Impact.
NWA.
They're building up NWA. Yeah, exactly. They have all.
I want to watch legit Lately Hirsch versus Camille. I mean,
too.
I've seen Camille. I've seen some of Camille's stuff in NWA, but I'll be real with you. Like her presentation, her promo, her promo work on Dynamite. Her presentation against Layla, I want to see her. I want to see more of that, right? I mean, I'm engaged on what's going on with NWA. Even to a lesser extent with like Nick Gage, seeing him get an opportunity in AEW. Like AEW throws a bone
to the other feds.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Like I don't. I think that some of it has to be like there has to be some acknowledgement that like. There's a recognition that like in order for the wrestling to be healthy, there has to be more than one fish and like one guy on the block. Like you can't just have a one-stop shop. And I think AEW embraces that. I think that like we've seen their relationship, a working relationship with NWA and how that's made their product better with the women's division.
Thunder Rosa out of it, man.
It's Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa both.
Yeah, like
you're starting to see like, even from early on from their foundations, plucking like MLW, you're getting the Max Casters and the MJFs and stuff like that. There's a lot of that there, and I like that it's a very mature, I feel healthy perspective, not just like healthy from a company perspective of AEW's health, but a bit like wrestling as a whole. It's a healthy perspective to approach things that way. Like it's we need each other. We need each other to be better. And I think that WWE is starting to even see that within their own company. Dude, like they're almost
NXT stuff is crazy.
I was gonna say they're almost devouring their own brand. That NXT, what made like I loved NXT before AEW emerged. I listened recently
to show. Yeah.
I listened to Enzo recently. And Enzo was talking about how NXT was the AEW. They were the alternative before AEW came around. And it feels like maybe Vince is so mad. I'm pontificating here, but like so mad about what AEW's growth and what's happened that like he's but it feels like they're eating their own. It's kind of like sad to see. But it's almost like they're cannibalizing their own product. Like NXT is being sacrificed for the identity of what made that brand great. And I think that like it's a dichotomy of philosophies. WWE has really been about winning through choking out their competition and in a more traditional sense, just beating their competition into the ground and ultimately having them submit and then buying them or taking their top talents and leaving them to go.
Buying the top talents. That's why there's 500 wrestlers on the roster.
And AEW approaches things very differently. Yeah, you could tell AEW, like you said tonight, they had 3 title matches tonight, right? Like there's no doubt, like
free television.
Like how often we see AEW Dynamite where it's like this feels like a pay-per-view, especially the month of July. Like it was just like week after week after week where you're like, this is nuts. Like I would pay money to see most of these matches. Like there's no doubt. I think AEW, they're definitely going all in. They want to be successful. They want to be a profitable and thriving business, but they don't want it to be at the expense of the industry. They don't want to see other people fail just so they can win. And I think that's a very mature way to view the business.
More people watching Impact isn't going to make less people watch AEW. More people watching New Japan isn't going to make fewer people watch AEW. More people watching NWA isn't going to make fewer people watch AEW.
Yes.
People are going to watch the shows they like. People are going to watch the shows that don't insult their intelligence, that they enjoy, that has good wrestling and good talents. And if you can get more talents from other companies because you have a good working relationship with them, if you can have Thunder Rosa, if you can have Nick Gage, if you can get Camille on there, if you can get all these other guys, let's say eventually you get Chris Masters on here or something, like you get these guys that have names that are top talents that have been around for a long time, but people know, and you can put Christian back on Impact and be like, he's AEW star, then you're getting people that don't watch AEW to see AEW through Christian. You get people to go on these shows and you get this cross-promotion stuff. And, man, I haven't thought about Impact in years until they started doing the cross-promotion stuff. And I was like, oh, let me check it out. And I watched a couple episodes and it's like, oh, it's pretty good. I know.
I think that they're strong. They've definitely, without fans, it hurt their product. But there are some talents on that show that I can get down with. Like, I'm into Josh Alexander. Like, I think that dude can go. I know a lot of people like Chris Bay. Like, that dude has sort of a vibe to him that you're like, all right, that guy has an it factor. There are talents on that show, and even for me, like even going back and watch, like me as a Detroit guy, like I've always had a soft spot for the Motor City Machine Guns, and I've always liked Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and being able to see talents like that on that show is cool. And the more, I don't know, I think it's like the more you keep your mind open to seeing things, the better. You're not going to suffer by trying different things.
Well, it's a different, like you said, it's a different philosophy, man. It's do I want to, to make it so everybody else suffers and I'm the only guy in the, it's like the professional sports, right?
Yep.
Where like there's NFL, there's MLB, NBA, there isn't a single other league, major league, that you can make any money doing anything in. There's other leagues, right? You're making a grand,
right?
For the season,
it's the NFL and then nothing, and there's
nothing,
right?
And you can't, and it's great, but eventually everything inflates. Look at baseball contracts right now. Now there's no other leagues, there's no competition. These contracts are insane. You're paying guys $500 million contracts for 5 years, 6 years, and it's insane. Yep. And it doesn't matter because they're making so much money. They're the only option. But at some point, it's going to get too big. Like, it only can go so far. You can't have players making $1 billion and the owners also making $1 billion. Eventually, it's going to collapse under its own weight. And I think that is what you're seeing in WWE too.
Yes,
yes. They're firing, even though they're making record profits, they're firing half their roster. And they fired like 3/4 of NXT. I looked at something the other day, like SmackDown 205. There's 3 people, it's in the division, and it's yeah. And I'm like, okay, I guess this just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, 205 Live. Yeah, I don't think so.
Are you kidding?
I mean, and that was what I was going to emphasize too. Is this idea of us consuming as much as you can. It ultimately will come back, because I can't hate what again, I know that
I love WWE, even though
it was very unpopular what they did to release the talent, all that talent, right? But looking at their roster, looking at what they do, I can understand that they cut a lot of dead weight, not to be disrespectful to anybody. But
in terms of
that they didn't have plans for. They didn't have plans for,
and shouldn't hire people that they don't have plans for.
It's a sign that they had far too many. They have far too many contracts. And think about it, like Buddy Murphy just talked recently about like how, and an extension. We talked about it with QT Marshall. QT in an interview with us talked about like, man, I don't ever want to see a situation where like we have guys who come in every week that are just sitting and catering and have nothing to do. Like, and how many times have we heard that story over and over and over again, where it's like these talents at WWE come and they're there and they have no plans for them and no investment in their future. And I think that that's what makes AEW great right now, is that although they have a lot of talent, they are always working to try to avoid that situation where we are sitting on talent and we don't know what to do with them. And I think that that's a good thing.
Oh, it is. I mean, you can't have, too many people in any company. You can't have too many things going on, especially when you're talking about television. There's a finite amount of time. You know what I mean? There's a finite amount of time on television per week. You know, WWE only has so many hours. Again, though, this is my biggest criticism of how they approach stuff. We see the same match on Raw every week. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, and you love Drew McIntyre, but how many times are you going to see Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley? I understand what you mean.
Yes, exactly. So it's like they don't have an excuse. They have 3 hours on Monday. They have 2 hours on Tuesday. They have 2 hours on Friday. And you should be able to make a bigger effort of developing people. The problem isn't the talent. It's that you're not utilizing these guys. You're not utilizing these women. You're not utilizing these people that are doing like something they love, and something that's very hard. It's a very niche thing to get into, wrestling. You have to be an actor and you have to be an athlete. That's very hard to do.
That's
true.
You
can tell by Space Jam 2, it's not easy to be an actor and an athlete at the same time.
Did you watch that? I didn't catch it.
I thought LeBron.
I avoided it because
top notch. His acting is on par with Tommy Wiseau and most of the cast from Troll 2. He's great, grade A. I loved the movie. As somebody who loves terrible movies, it was fantastic. Fantastic for me.
Oh, Bods.
He's great.
You're gonna have me go and watch it just to cringe watch now.
Oh yeah, it's a cringe. It's a cringe movie. But Space Jam. Give me my Benjamins, bro. That's fine. We'll pay $50,000 like Tony Khan.
Yeah, exactly.
For that dumpster fire movie. Yeah. But the point is that you have all these people, and a lot of these people on these rosters, man, are like Bobby Roode, like a guy like Bobby Roode, right? Who busted his tail in Impact. And was a guy that everybody universally respects and likes. I love Bobby Roode. I was so excited when he debuted in WWE. And he had a big first, segment. Yeah, and his entrance was awesome. Like everything about Bobby Roode, like they propelled that guy. You're like, okay, this dude's gonna be the man. And then he had his first big feud. And then it was like, okay, he's a guy. You got to see Bobby Roode. Isn't that great, everybody? Well, there you go. Now he's Robert Roode because he can't be too funny.
And he got to be with the Dirty Dogs, and he's won the tag titles with Dolph. And so I get I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And Buddy
they try to propel somebody, and then they kind of just go like, okay, cool, it's done.
I feel like when you look at I think AEW and Pen talked, in the comments we're talking about AEW looks at. All right, we have AEW Dark. We have AEW Dark Elevation. We have Dynamite. We have Rampage, right? How do we continue to put people to work, see their talents? I mean, again, tonight was a great example. Fuego is a talent that they got to see really develop a lot outside of the big stage. They threw him out there, and people are behind him. He has a cult following.
Losing you, buddy.
Think about how many people. Think about how many people, are fans of true fans of these characters that aren't necessarily the top people in AEW. there's a lot of fans that are like that get behind the Fuego del Sols, and to me, like even for me,
he's so over.
I love QT Marshall and the Factory. I love them. I eat it up. everything that those guys do, I eat that up, right? But like
we get in arguments with people on Twitter all day about QT Marshall.
They embrace. They kind of embrace that. Like, there's going to be a role for like if you want to work and you want to if you can go, you're going to have a shot. You're going to have an opportunity here. I enjoy what they're doing with that, man. I think that AEW has the right mentality. And again, even with like Mission Pro Wrestling, right? Like, think about the talents that have had opportunities that have come out of that, right? Like, I just think it's just a very mature, smart viewpoint. And that's why, like, I know AEW is still so young as a company, but I feel like their mentality is something that is going to set the tone for success moving forward. I don't think AEW is going away, bro. I don't think AEW is going away anytime. Yeah.
Going away.
There's a lot of people out there who have been talking about AEW dying and all this stuff.
Jim Cornette's the only one talking about it. And Jim Cornette, I'll be completely honest, man. I find Jim Cornette hilarious. But Jim Cornette is one of these guys who just hates AEW. That's fine. That's his thing. That's
his shtick.
That's his thing. And it's totally cool. I hate WWE most of the time. And I'm totally fine with saying it. And you know, it's because I like good storytelling and not having my intelligence assaulted. That's fine. If you don't like AEW, that's fine, Jim. It's fine. But like the fans that come on there and are like, oh, it's dying. It's like, yeah, well, you know, the viewership's going up pretty much every week. You know, last week it was down like 100,000, but also it was like not the best episode of Dynamite, which is, you know, it's fine. And now, you know, when CM Punk comes out next week, and they hit 2 million views on Wednesday because of it. I wonder what everybody's gonna be saying about like AEW dying.
Let's get into it.
You there, Mike? Totally went dark me, buddy. Everybody in the crowd, can you hear Crayfish? I can't hear him at all.
I got disconnected. Again, not home, not at my home base. Gotcha. Apologize for that.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was me or you. Sorry, buddy.
No, it was me, man. No, it was me. I mean, again, not at my home base, lost power at home. So, yeah, thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it.
I think we got our diehards in here right now, so we're good.
But yeah, Bon, so I mean, like, we want to address the elephant in the room, you know, CM Punk and what his role will be here. You know, and again, talking about moving the needle and ratings and all those things, I think that the buzz for Punk is very real. And again, AEW, like, let me ask you, like, I know that you're really like in your column this week, right? You were really digging Malachi Black's presentation.
Yeah.
You're also a huge Miro guy. You're a big CM Punk guy. We just got done talking about AEW sort of embracing bringing in talents from all over. Is there a line that I know Bonds, there's no such thing as too much talent, but we just got done talking about AEW versus WWE and sort of the different philosophies behind those companies. And one of the criticisms against AEW is, especially from the skeptics, is, oh man, they're bringing in all these ex-WWE guys and blah, blah, blah. Like, is there a line for you that AEW needs to be cognizant of? Because I know that the rumors out there right now of Ric Flair has you kind of like where do you draw that line? Because if Bray Wyatt emerged and came into AEW, I think we'd be good with that, right? If Buddy
Murphy's hinting at it, like, it sounds like that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think after what I saw tonight, I'll be honest with you, like, and I know I'm just spitballing, but like after what I saw tonight with Kenny and Christian, I would be all for Buddy Murphy going into Impact. And I think that Buddy and Impact could work really, really well. Yeah. And he could be a legitimate challenger to Christian for the title. And I think that he could have a lot of awesome matches and be one of their top guys there, right? Like you could give Buddy a chance. Buddy hasn't had that opportunity for a lot of North American wrestling fans to see him as a top guy, right? Yeah. His biggest program outside of the cruiserweight division was probably as Seth Rollins' disciple, right? And so he's the sidekick, and although he was paired up with one of the best in wrestling,
right?
This would allow him to have an impact where gain his footing, see how he does as a singles guy. As a singles guy, give him promos, put him in some programs, throw him in dude.
You could get an EC3 situation where you're like, EC3 was like a dude who was, I'm whatever my name is. I don't even remember his name when he first came to WWE. It was something stupid. And he was just like Dan O'Brien's.
It was Bateman. Derek Bateman. Derek
Bateman. I miss Eric Cartman.
Eric Cartman.
Eric Cartman was
Derek Bateman. Yes.
And he was and then he went to Impact and he was the man. And then he goes back and he's Derek Bateman again.
Yeah.
But you know, it was like, man, okay, like this guy can do it. I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he's a shredder now, by the way. EC3 needs to come back over here and do some wrestling because he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger now.
Dude, it's ridiculous.
He's yoked. But that's a perfect example of that, where like, you know, EC3 goes to Impact and pulls some MJF stuff, and now it's like, oh man, this guy can do it. Like before, he was just like, you know, the Daniel Bryan's whatever it was, his underling and on NXT.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, this guy isn't just some underling. This guy can go. Like, what were they doing? Like this guy is a star. And that's how you do. That's why the other federations are important. And just going back to your point before, Ring of Honor, man. We used to go to Ring of Honor shows and watch Ring of Honor. We got to see Nigel McGuinness wrestle. We got to see Daniel Bryan wrestle. We got to see El Generico, Sami Zayn. We got to see Kevin Owens. We got to see all these guys come into their own. We got to see like all these talents.
It was Cesaro back when he was Claudio Castagnoli.
Your favorite.
we have to see a lot of these guys.
We got to see the American Wolves.
We got to see a lot of, and that's.
Shout out to the American Wolves.
If you're a real pro wrestling fan, you recognize, dude, everybody gets their start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm even seeing something happening like you just talked about in Impact right now with Cass, you know, with Big Cass. Like
Cass everybody loves Cass too.
Matt Morrissey over there is killing it right now.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
He's being presented as a special attraction. Like the dude is being presented as a badass who can carry his weight and toss people around. And I love that he's getting that that opportunity. Dude, again, Murphy in AEW, he might fall through the cracks. Not to say that he's not talented enough to hang with the best in the world.
People coming in, though.
But I think that Murphy would be a great fit in an Impact, and then you still get those opportunities to say, like, all right, if he's hitting like we think he can, then that forbidden door is open. He can make it segue into. We could see him getting involved in matches with Kenny Omega and getting involved in AEW television. I'd be all for that, right?
That's the thing about the forbidden door being wide open, man. Buddy Murphy signs with Impact, and you could have him on AEW. You could maybe you have him involved in the Black storyline. I don't know if you saw his Buddy Murphy posted something on his Instagram and his Twitter, and it had the same actors in it as the Malachi Black pre AEW debut.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like they're showing this. If it doesn't happen to where they're involved in some way, it's like a swerve. Because they're like, man, like you were in salt or in jail for 8 years and you're spending 90 days in solitary. Like they're totally not even trying to hide what they're talking about. And it's really cool. And I think it's kind of funny and tongue in cheek too. It's like, okay, man, like these guys are having fun with their 90-day, their 90-day time they can't wrestle. And they're really setting some stuff up too, because now all this buzz is coming around about Buddy Murphy. And if he goes to Impact, that's going to be completely different, because now it's like everybody thinks he's going to go and team up with Malachi Black in AEW, or like
which would
be somewhat involved, which would be fine. Like, right. If Malachi Black's doing this whole like interesting, like ex WWE guy stable, that might be really interesting. Like,
dude,
who knows?
if you had a stable with Black, Wyatt, and Buddy Murphy, that's
unstoppable. Then you get
sick.
that's yes.
But back to this.
But
back to like my original question, man.
Yeah.
Do you have a
yes? Yeah.
Where do you draw that line? Because you don't want to breathe life into the AEW is like the WCW. You don't want that, right?
I think you gotta just pick and choose. You have to be smart. You can't just sign everybody. You have to sign the people that you know are draws. You have to sign the people that the fans want. So, like, for example, Malachi Black was a great signing. You want to know why? This is why. Because the entire time he was in WWE, when he was Aleister Black, everybody said, man, this guy's great, but they don't do anything with him. He's great, but he's being wasted. He's great, but he, is just toiling in mediocrity and toiling in the mid-card. And then they immediately bring him in, and you go like, okay, like this guy looks like a star. He wrestles like a star. He cuts promos like a star. He's artistic like a star. He's like Darby Allin in terms of like creativity. And you're like, okay, cool. Now we're going to present this guy the way that he should have been presented. And if you have something for him, do it. If you don't, then don't. You don't have to sign everybody. Tyler Breeze just talked about this. Tyler Breeze said, like, hey, I'm going to be like, I'll be lost in that roster right now.
That's a good call by you.
Tyler Breeze would be a great fit in Impact too, because that's somewhere he could build himself up again. He needs that. And I love Tyler. I'd love to see him on AEW, but like that's not in the works. And again, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't hire everybody. You can't sign every talent. You have to sign guys that you have a plan for, that you're gonna make do work, and you can't let your roster get bloated. Like, yes, if you end up releasing some guys, or some guys end up retiring, like again, like Chris Jericho is at an age where he could decide any day to hang it up.
Yeah.
Like Kenny Omega's talked about it before, where Kenny is like, I don't know how long I'm going to wrestle because I've been injured a bunch. Right. You know what I mean? And the Bucks have both said like they're not going to wrestle past 40. And Matt's 36.
FTR said 2 more. Yeah. FTR's talked about just a couple more years. Yeah.
Right. And so you get these guys in, and you can bring in some of the NXT talent that got cut. You could. You kind of do it like what you're doing now with Dark. You have guys come in, you see if they're any good. You maybe give them trial contracts instead of just full-time, like, maybe you do that where you're like, okay, we'll pay you like for a 6-month trial contract.
Yep.
And then we have like maybe you give them yourself an option, like as Tony Khan, you say like, hey Tony, or hey talent, whoever you are, I'll give you you get 6 months, and then you sign this. We have an option to pick you up for another year if we want to.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's how it works. And so if you have a plan for somebody, you can do that, or maybe 2 years. It depends. Or you can renegotiate and sign to an extension if you really like them and you think they're really good. And like then you're not stuck on a contract for 4 years, 3 years, and you don't have 400 wrestlers on your roster,
right? And
12 of them are doing stuff,
right?
Because that's again something we got to watch out for, and that's something that I had a problem with in my column this week on Dynamite, was that it feels like because they're bringing in a lot of talent, there's this like weird like pacing issue where with certain feuds, like for example, the MJF feud with Jericho.
Talk about it, bro. Talk about it.
MJF feud with Jericho. So like we were all expecting the final labor to be at All Out, like all of us. And we also expected the final labor to not be MJF. Like the original thing, what they said on television was like, okay, there's going to be 5 labors of Jericho, and then you get to wrestle MJF. And then it becomes like, okay,
now MJF is
the 5th labor, and it's not going to be on pay-per-view. And it, like, the Wardlow match is really quick, and I liked the match, but it was kind of disappointing to me. It just wasn't like anything special. I was expecting like a prize fight, and it wasn't that.
Yeah, and a lot of Wardlow's dominance just I was defending Wardlow being that labor because it made sense.
I wanted that to be the labor, but it didn't work.
Didn't work like we hoped it would have.
Maybe Jericho's hurt. Like maybe Jericho, because of what he's been dealing with, isn't 100%, and I doubt he's 100% because of like that Nick Gage match. Like took years off his life.
It was brutal.
You know what I mean? Like that was like a disgusting match.
Honestly.
And he right. And so like I understand them like kind of toning it down a little bit. I get that, but it feels like, okay, like maybe because CM Punk is coming, maybe because Daniel Bryan is coming, like we got to rush this feud a little bit. And like that's where I have a problem with it. I don't want you to spit in my face for watching this for 6 months, this feud boil for 6 months, and me get invested in it, and you invested in these people, invested in their stories, invested in these characters, and invested in like what is going to happen with Chris Jericho and MJF. Like I want to know, is MJF going to retire Chris Jericho at some point? Is MJF going to like beat him? Is Chris Jericho going to be the ultimate conqueror hero at the end of this? Is he going to be the first guy to like get MJF? Like, you know what I mean?
There's a lot of intrigue.
There's a lot of intrigue. And I feel like when you do that and you kind of start rushing storylines, when before it felt like for a while, like that storyline felt rushed in the beginning. And then they like, okay, we'll stretch it out. And then now all of a sudden it's going like 100 miles an hour again. And part of like the thing about being a wrestling fan is we have to trust the company we watch. It's to do the right thing. We have to trust them we have to trust the payoff is going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing. Everything's to the payoff always for wrestling, always. And so when we have something like this, where we're like, okay, like the payoff looked like it was going to be a pay-per-view and now it's not, that's really disappointing. And again, like they never came out and outright said, okay, they're going to have a match at All Out. When you look at the timing of everything,
it was set so perfect. Beautifully. And then you start to question, like, okay, like,
is it because of CM Punk?
Is it because of this other talent coming in? And like, and again, is that going to then jeopardize feuds and characters that we've come to love? I mean, like, where if MJF versus Jericho is not on the card at All Out, what is MJF doing at All Out? What is Jericho doing at All Out?
And why is it not on the card?
And why, if they're not against each other, then why are they on the card this soon? Right? Like, this soon to All Out. Why would you pivot away from that?
That's home been run? Your biggest feud of the year. And all of a sudden, like, and again, this might be us just playing way too much into it. You know what I mean? It might just be that. Like, maybe they'll have a match. But then then you're cheapening these 5 labors of Jericho. If let's say like MJF beats Chris Jericho and then they have another rematch, or Jericho wins and then they have their rematch at All Out. Like, well, Chris Jericho already won. You know, MJF like already beat him again. Like, you know, like it doesn't matter as much. It's not as important. And then the labors were just like, okay, well, what's something that could have been like this epic storybook, like long-term, like month-long feud thing, like mini feud within this bigger feud, or 2-month long even, turns into just another part of it. It's not special anymore. And I don't want, because again, when we saw Impact, and I'm going to talk about Impact again here because it's important for this when we talk about AEW bringing in talent. When Impact started signing guys like Hulk Hogan and signing guys that were old timers that like were clearly on their way out of the business. Brother. Like, and then Hulk Hogan like had his stuff with Sting, and like you're having these guys kind of take over the show because, and it's WCW too. It happened in there where you had, you know, the Clique, and you had, or like half of the Clique basically there, and then they became NWO, and then NWO had basically their own show. Like it was like an NWO show on WCW, and you know, then it became the same thing in Impact, and that's my ultimate fear. And I don't think it's going to happen for AEW because I think Tony Khan's a smart enough businessman to know better. But when I look at AEW and I'm like, man, like this roster is really good already. We don't need to sign 20 more talents. We need to sign 5. Like maybe 5.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't need to be like, you don't need to sign every single person that they just cut from NXT. And to be fair, the people that have said that like, hey, they're just WCW 2.0, you're wrong. First of all, because WWE's fired over 100 wrestlers in the last calendar year. Can you name 10 that they've signed?
Wow.
They fired 100 wrestlers. 100. They have signed like a handful. So you can't tell me right now that they sign every single person WWE fires. They've hired John Moxley. Okay, if they bring in CM Punk, they're bringing in these guys.
You think about the names that they brought in: Moxley, Jericho, Miro.
All these guys are top.
Malachi Black. You're thinking about names that are big name guys. I mean, anybody would want them. Anybody would want them.
And exactly. And again, like you bring in the guys that anybody would want.
Bring in the no-brainers.
And then everything else will fall into place. And just don't force it. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe with the Zack Ryder, they might have been trying to force it, trying to find that lightning in the bottle, because Zack Ryder did get over on his own.
That's true.
And I had a conversation with somebody on Facebook the other day, and I'm in on all these AEW groups. So like I was talking to this guy, and I was like, dude, like he was like, oh man, they just sign everybody, and everybody sign like they just sign whoever they want. And I'm like, bro, like no, they don't. And then we started talking about Zack Ryder, and I was like, he was like, well, he hired Zack Ryder, and like look how that worked out. And I'm like, they hired a guy. Like, so Tony Khan hired a dude that was like basically told like you're going to be nothing in WWE, and decided, you know what, I'll just make my own YouTube channel and get over. And he got himself over on his own. Huge. Got himself over, and then WWE kicked him in the nuts and said, nope, no, you can't be over. Sorry, we're going to put you in a wheelchair. We're going to have John Cena push you off of a stage, and then he's going to make out with your girlfriend. And then that's going to be you going over. That's going to be you going over, okay? And so you don't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter, Zach. It doesn't matter what you do. And so, like, I understand that was a smart bargain. And also that was when AEW wasn't didn't have as much star power as it does now. And now it has the star power, and now it has these guys. And when you get a CM Punk in there and you get a Daniel Bryan in there, maybe then you slow down a little bit. Maybe you get Bray, you sign Bray, maybe you sign Buddy Murphy, and then you kind of like, okay, slow down. Maybe you sign Charlotte when Charlotte ends up getting tired of working in WWE.
Man, that'd be sick.
And then like maybe you bring in, like I said, maybe 5 to 8 more talents. And I think that if you do more than that, like more than 5, it needs to be like tag teams or women. It can't be all men singles guys. It needs to be like you bring in some women talent. You bring in, a Charlotte. You bring in somebody who falls through the cracks. Like a Ty Conti even. Ty Conti fell through the cracks in NXT. And
she did.
And that's somebody that you can bring in. You have to just be able to spot that talent, scout it.
And as long as AEW approaches it with this maturity, right, where
which they have been.
Which, like, again, we've seen Private Party cross over and interact with Impact, right? We've seen some of that. So as long as you allow, some of these talents to cross over and embrace that AEW Dynamite and now Rampage are going to be the home of the faces of AEW. You can use your platform then to figure out who works and who's the natural position of the roster. But I agree with you that the roster's gonna start feeling a little tight. If given the amount of time they have on primetime television. Now again, Dark and Dark Elevation, you're gonna put your talents out there to get work and get reps, no doubt.
And they can call back that on the show, which is good. At least they can be like, hey, they had a match on Dark, and you can kind of get to know people on there, which is great. But continue.
It's just I see some of that, and I think Jericho, you do see some talents in AEW where you can be like, all right, well, the Matt Hardys, the Jerichos, there are some even at Lance Archer. We love Lance,
45.
But yeah, he's he's in his 40s, and so you start to question all right, who's the next generation to start to become the next big superstar? AEW is doing a nice job of having a blend of experience and youth. There are, to this point, I'll be honest with you, they haven't hired anybody off of WWE I've been questioning. Oh man, that was a weird signing.
No.
I think that if they allow talents Bronson Reed, right? That was a guy who in NXT they were trying to give a push to see if he could be the next big man. Bronson Reed's a guy who I feel would benefit from going to an ROH or an Impact, allowing him to be
appearing on Dark.
Or being in Dark, right? Giving a guy like that a shot.
Because most of those people aren't signed.
That's a good point.
That's what we have to talk. Another thing that people talk about, you just bring everybody in, you sign all these talents. Look at how many people are on Dark. It's no, there's 70 wrestlers signed on AEW's roster that are signed. and everybody else is not signed. So they're using this as like their little version of NXT on YouTube, and they're able to look at, okay, cool. It's so frustrating because
they seem to embrace Dark and Elevation for being a platform to giving talents an opportunity to shine. And I think that
Fuego's like 1-39 on there. You know what I mean? Or you know what I'm saying? Like,
but he's gotten over.
He gets a chance, yes.
Right.
But he's getting an opportunity to show what he can do. And like Dante Martin, look what Dante Martin did with it. Like Dante Martin looks like a freaking superstar now. Like he's the talk of the week. And it's because he got to go on Dark and do his thing, and then he got signed. Like Top Flight wasn't signed when they first showed up. They had their match with the Young Bucks. They weren't signed yet when they debuted against the Bucks. Like they weren't.
Right.
Man. Like that's just like that's the thing. Like they're bringing in people that are talented. Like 2.0, they've been great. They're hilarious. Daniel Garcia, like they're doing some good stuff. Like I like these guys, and like I think that they're really good about showing keeping who's on TV, like smart about it. They're letting them get in there, and that's why I'm not worried about them oversigning.
It's a good call.
I'm not worried about it because like Tony's done such a good job of being able to kind of balance, building up your own talent while also, signing guys that are experienced. Like Christian Cage working with Jungle Boy is brilliant. You know what I mean? Like that's brilliant because you could do so many things with that. Like you could have, Christian turn on him eventually, and then you bust him up to mega stardom, man. Like, you know what I mean? So there's and Jericho working with MJF, like all we talk.
Your point with Christian too is a great one too, because like Jungle Boy recently said, like, man, I struggle with promos. It's not my thing. I don't love promos. I have a hard time when people ask me to do them. I cringe and I want to run away and hide. And, it's really easy to forget Christian's journey, man. But this is a dude who started off in the Brood and very early on in his career was not Captain Charisma. This was a guy who naturally had to learn that you're going to have to push yourself to get outside of your comfort zone.
You have to make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah, to grow, you have to do that. And I think that pairing Jungle Boy with Christian's a nice, natural baby face. He can work with a veteran. He can learn from a guy who really checks all the boxes, who knows how to be a complete, well-rounded pro. And
what Jungle Boy needs.
And Jungle Boy was in the background there tonight in that post-match celebration, and he's standing there and watching Christian cut, a huge post-match champion promo.
A great promo.
And so I think that's a perfect example of like utilizing veteran leadership to build the next generation. And you loved the moment, like MJF's line about how you haven't just met your equal, you've met your successor.
Yep.
On Dynamite, and that's another example. So I think the more you embrace that, you're almost creating this environment that is becoming self-sufficient, right? Like Tony can sort of watch and see as veterans mentor youth.
See you sticks.
You're seeing Matt Hardy. Watching Matt Hardy, I was cracking up. Matt Hardy winning on Dynamite. And the post-match celebration, when you have Angelico out there with his goofy bucket hat, this tall, lengthy white dude. You have Private Party, flashing the two watch Cassidy. You got, Jack Evans out there. You got the Blade and Bunny. Like, could you have a more diverse, eclectic, weird group? And you're giving all of these talents an opportunity to work alongside a guy like Matt Hardy. And obviously Matt is the big name of the group, and he's the big money of the group. But
he elevates everybody else.
And he shows them, all right, like
he's like their pro. Like it's like NXT, like original NXT.
You're creating these little microcosms, these little communities within your company that help breed and teach and mentor your new talent to be better.
And then once in 5 years, dude, like we're not going to see the vast majority of these veterans on this roster anymore. I really think that. You know what I mean? Like I think Matt Hardy will be retired. I think Jericho will be retired. Like these guys aren't going to be here anymore. But we're going to see Jungle Boy be a world champion. We're going to see Hangman Page be the guy. You know, we're going to see, Ricky Starks and MJF and Max Caster if he ever gets out of sensitivity training. Like we're going to see all these guys.
Sammy, Darby,
Darby,
Jungle Boy.
Just keep naming them, bro. Keep naming them because it's going to keep coming. You know what I mean? And that's the goal here. That's why you bring in a CM Punk.
And he's going, like, they've already put rumors, they've already had the rumblings of Darby and CM Punk working together. Now, again, you already see Darby working with a mentorship role with what Sting is his mentor, and how that's helped him. But, you saw the Ethan Page feud. I was eating up that Ethan Page feud. And
where's Ethan, by the way? I miss him.
Darby me too. Darby feuding with Ethan. Ethan clearly emerged as a charismatic guy who feels comfortable on the mic, and he looks like a star. But if you put Punk in against Darby, that's gonna make Darby have to step up his promo game a little in a different way, right? Because Darby has been so freaking good at his unique, charismatic, creative backstage talent, like segments and things like that. But having him in a more direct way, taking a microphone and cutting a promo, like he did when he said, like, people around the world, they want to be the best in the world. AEW, like having more traditional promos is a good thing for Darby, and no one's going to challenge him more than the CM Punk, who's quite honestly as good as it gets.
And I love hearing you say that. But as a member of my Mount Rushmore, CM Punk's coming back is like the best thing ever. But also, like when you say that too, it's gonna test him with the crowd too, because Darby doesn't ever have to be the guy that's getting booed ever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like we're gonna see CM Punk, like CM Punk's gonna get the cheers, man. Like CM Punk's the man. And so like you're gonna get all that going on. And and so you're gonna get CM Punk coming in and just like completely changing the landscape for Darby. You're re-landscaping it, for Darby. And it's gonna change his it's gonna elevate him. It's gonna make him sink or swim. If he doesn't do it right, then they gotta rethink, like, okay, like maybe this guy's not a main eventer. And that's you know what I mean. Seriously.
Well, hey, pump the brakes. No, I know what you mean. I'm just joking.
Example.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But like, it's good to do that. You know what I mean? Because then you see, like, it's all about the crowd, man. It's all about the crowd reactions. What can you do to get yourself over? And that's wrestling. And even if you're the bad guy, like being Dolph Ziggler is great because you're always going to be respected as the best seller in the business. Even if you're never going to be world champion again, like you're still going to always be like. Everybody
have
respects
your niche.
Dolph Ziggler,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, like Darby's a guy who I don't know if he's ever going to be a world champion, but I know that he sells his tail off.
That's a good point.
His offense is super interesting, and he might never need a belt.
He could be a guy who's just like incredibly over because he's unique. He's unique.
Jeff Hardy,
right? Jeff Hardy doesn't need to be your world heavyweight champion to have a spot on your card. And
he can win tag team guy. It's not even about titles, but like I know Jeff Hardy for a long time. Like how many Intercontinental titles did he win or US titles? Like that dude won a ton of their like secondary belts.
Yep.
He was with tag teams with his brother and other people for years.
Yep.
And like that was fine. And Jeff Hardy's a Hall of Famer and everybody loves Jeff. And like Darby, you don't have to be the world champion to be like the guy, you know what I mean? That's oftentimes it's not the case. You know what I mean? Kenny gets a lot of trash on social media. You know what I mean? But he's still the Kenny Omega. He's the man. It doesn't matter. But again, he's not the most popular guy on the roster, probably in terms of like, I would say probably John Moxley is. You know what I mean?
That's a good question. We need to marinate.
Talk about that.
Let's marinate on that, guys. I mean, for our diehards out there who are with us and everything like that, that's a topic that we'd love to hear you talk about too. Is who do you feel like? And I know it's very hard to rank any. It's very tough. But if you had to rank the top, let's say our top 5, who are the top 5 most over individuals in AEW right now? That's a great question that I would love to hear you and I and SPD talk about. Like, and to your credit, you're right. There are certain characters, there are certain personas that simply don't need the belt to be a champion to get over, right? Like, to be.
It's not about that with them.
The old school like saying of like, some people make the belt and some people the belt makes them applies, and
that's why it's special when it works both ways, like with Britt. That's why it's special.
Say that one more time. I agree.
That's why it's special when it works both ways, like with Britt Baker.
Amen, brother.
She's the top dog, and SPD's not here to be the babyface and be like, well, she's a babyface now, so I gotta go into it when he's not here.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. SPD's so desperate to take my talent away from me, freaking dog.
He's gonna turn his roster that he drafted is gonna be all like guys shaking hands and giving each other high fives and be like, you know what? It's fine. We'll just all wrestle and they'll have a big 10-man match every week and just keep handing off. You know what? You can be the champ this week, buddy.
All right. So Lori's already putting her answers out there. She's saying, all right, I got my top picks, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be saying that Lori is one brilliant wrestling fan.
I think
clearly showing
spot on.
Clearly showing she knows her stuff. I mean, it's hard to argue with that list. As far as just pure charisma, I think that it's really tough to argue with that.
I think Goldberg is great. Yeah. I love it, James. Thank you for that one.
That's a good one. Yeah, Goldberg is definitely top tier right now.
Top tier in AEW. That's where I draw the line on signing people right there. Don't sign Goldberg like that, because then everybody that loves him right now will just be like, see, AEW stinks. They hired Goldberg, even though we wanted to watch him versus Bobby Lashley. Oh man.
Well, on that note, brother, I think it's 1:30 in the morning.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Wow, you guys are amazing for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you joining the show.
Most of these probably will not be 2 hours, but we're just kind of sitting here hanging out. So
yeah, it's just me and Boz hanging out. SPD will keep us in line. Everybody loves themselves some SPD. He'll keep us structured and in line. He'll cut us off soon. But
well, to be fair, our first 45 minutes were super structured, and then we started talking.
That is true. That is true.
Probably our YouTube video version of this that goes later will just be like, we'll like cut out the last like hour and a half, and then we'll just like have our ending here.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, what we should do is have like that. We should have the Rampage Rundown be one tighter segment, and then we'll do like maybe that's what we do going forward, guys. Yeah, maybe that's what we do. I think that's really, to me, this is what's fun. Just kind of bouncing back and forth, hearing people in the chat talking about stuff. So yeah, maybe we'll do the first 45 minutes or so to Rampage Rundown, and then we can see how long we're able to stick out, just to hang out and talk AEW with you guys. It's a lot of fun. Just being able to spitball. I think, I'm not alone when I see the buzz out there, man. AEW is definitely making waves. People are talking about it. It's a lot of fun to be a wrestling fan right now. And so, what Tony Khan is doing, there's a reason why people like James are in love with this man. He is changing he's changing the landscape of professional wrestling for the better. He's adding some beautiful hydrangeas. I really like what he's got going on in that landscape. And great job, Tony Khan. Thank you so much for debuting Rampage, an amazing show tonight. We look forward to talking to you guys. We're going to be back in action again on Wednesday, post Dynamite. We'll be back in the saddle. Everything's going to be where it needs to be. Yep. Be back in our normal time slot on Wednesday night.
Hopefully Crayfish's power is back.
So let's hope so.
You can watch
still
Dynamite
no power.
And record it.
Yeah, still no power since Wednesday at 3:30. So
you gotta get a bike, dude, and like do the bike thing and just have power going through your house like that.
Oh, I like that. Maybe I was thinking about maybe like having like a million hamsters and just having them generate power for me.
There you go.
Yeah,
I love it.
All right, brother. I gotta go.
Right,
I will let you guys
everybody.
go. Thanks so much for joining us, y'all. We'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate y'all. Oldberg.